Hello and welcome back. It's been a while since I talked about the most recent build of Calvin's Gallery. For this video, I want to just kind of go over some of the things that I've been working on. A lot of what you're going to see is going to be showing up in version 10. Right now, V9 is out, and the most recent playtest was V7. So between V7 and V10, you're going to notice some massive differences. Some of the biggest, we're going to go to skills. A lot of spells have had their costs increased. It's particularly AoE spells. So one issue in my playing is I found that the AoE spells or the multi-hit ones, things like the embers, they're just always outright better. So at this point, they do a little bit less damage. They cost a lot more. And the idea is that they're better at sort of starting a fight, finishing off some enemies, applying status effects. They should not be kind of your go-to spam abilities anymore. Another thing is enemies. In a lot of cases, the light damage is going to deal a lot more, especially towards the higher end. So when you get into like these corrupt enemies, end game enemies, light damage is a lot more powerful. And that's to make it more beneficial to use these light abilities. There's not a lot of them. Every character gets a couple, but they're meant to be very powerful, very significant. On the topic of enemies, so we've got the minor summon has been in the game since almost the very beginning. I've also added two more sort of side bosses, one the Tidal Lamia, and then the Walking Desert, one being water themed, one being earth themed, the summon being dark themed. So I do have plans for one of each element to be added down the road. I'll probably do something along with the elemental gods as well. Maybe a mix. And some combo encounters, things like that. So in V9, I introduced the palace enemies. We've got, things like the basic combat unit, the elemental unit, kind of heavy tank, healer. The hero is kind of more of a generalist. And I also have added in the Mimic and the Pearlescent Mimic. So these are enemies that can drop nearly any item in the game. The Pearlescent Mimic, even here you can see, has a significantly higher drop rate. And like a double drop chance for some things. These are great, very rare enemies that are extremely lucrative to hunt down. On the island, so there you can now get to the so we've got the world map here. You can finally get to this middle island. And so we've got, here's kind of a zoom in, and the island is broken up into a whole bunch of small maps. And on these maps, there's a ton of resources, lots of things to find and do, little Easter eggs, side quests, but there's also enemies, of course. And this is going to be, in particular, the stalkers, predators, and the hunters. Stalkers are some more of a direct combat. They don't do anything too fancy. They're more aggressive. They've got some self buffs. Predators they've got the double and the triple attack. Very dangerous. They have the maul party ability. So enemies have party skills now, just like your team does. And so that will let them hit the whole team if they're given time to build up. And then the hunter has some self buffs. They have that triple strike. They can initiate a rage. And they have Metal Rain as their party ability. And so that'll inflict bleeding on the whole party. So each of these is a very different enemy to fight. Each fight with them is going to be a little bit more unique. When you encounter them, there's also... They each have a unique effect that can pop up. So the hunters can gain quickness, the predators can start with rage, and the stalkers can start with guard active. And so that means even, fighting them over and over again, sometimes the fight's going to be a little bit different. And then you've also got an island melee, which has all of them present, with one group being able to have different status effects, similar to the other ones. There's also now enemies in the ocean. So as you're boating around, so you'll be able to get this ship once you defeat Aphrodite. You'll get a war horn that'll let you summon the ship to the coast, and you'll be able to go around in the boat. While you're going around here, there's going to be enemies that you can run into, but there's also going to be this kind of traveling island. And that's where you're going to run into these wisps and rain clouds. These are pretty minor enemies. They don't have a lot going on. They do have some decent loot. They have a decent variety of loot. Not particularly dangerous. They do have some solid AoEs, though. Like, this wisp has Blizzard. The rain clouds have a few different things. So that'll be a good way to kind of get some more of those sprouts, grind up some different materials pretty easily. A nice way to kind of top up the party before heading into the island area and heading up to Olympus towards the end game zones. After that, so once you get to Olympus, so actually, let's look at some of the islands too, actually. So we've got islands down here. So right now there's only 2 islands that you can encounter. There's going to be quite a few more. And these are going to work similar to the world areas. So you'll come in here on the boat. You'll be able to run around. There's some enemies. There's some things to do and find. And then when you leave, it'll just kind of pop you back into the ocean. This structure here, this is going to be an underwater ruin. That's going to be a side area that's completely optional. So that'll probably get done after the game's Steam release, because we're moving really quickly towards that. I want to get a few more bugs hammered out, and then I want to try to get that released. Now, back to Olympus. So Olympus comes with a large collection of new enemies, namely some new sprites, the sinner enemy, and the different gods. Okay, so the sprites are pretty standard compared to the sprites of the other areas. These ones are all darkness themed. So we've got corruption, unholy, and another corruption. The corrupt, easiest, simple. It has a minor buff. Its primary attacks are going to be this darkness bolt and shadow strike. But it can also purge damaging effects from teammates. So, bleeding, burning, poison, things like that. Unholy Sprite can do anything that the Corrupt Sprite can do, but it also has defense buffs and that cleave and a shot. So that's kind of an AoE. And then lastly is the Sprite of Corruption, which further builds on top of that Unholy Sprite. They can inflict status effects. They have several more buff abilities. These ones are the most dangerous by far. They're pretty resistant to damage, but they're very weak to light. So building into those light spells will really benefit you in the long run. The Sinners are unique in they're pretty... So there's 3 types, weakest to strongest, and they all have this new shield skill. So at the beginning of their turn, they will shield an ally and almost entirely mitigate incoming damage for that ally. So this makes the fight a little less directed, or a little more directed, and a little more out of your control, as now you need to focus on dealing with whichever enemy is not shielded at the time. This is an instance where, you know, those status effects could be really helpful. Those AoEs would be good, because then you can stack up statuses on enemies, and when they're not the shielded one, really wear them down fast. These sinners, though, are going to be paired with the different gods. And that's where things are going to get really interesting. Because each god, one, has a wide range of skills, each one themed after their element. But they also each have this unique blessing skill. This blessing makes all enemies around them share the boss's element. So, you know, ice enemies will be resistant to, what is it? They'll be resistant to water and air. They'll reflect ice. They'll be weaker to earth and fire. But it means that you can't just, you know, if you run into the fire god, you can't go in and start spamming ember. Start spamming that, what is it, the warmth skill. You've got to actually kind of pay attention and work around it. Because those strengths also come with weaknesses. When you get to the Dark Goddess, however, she doesn't have that blessing skill. So when you fight her and her sinners, you only have to deal with that shield ability. She is a little tougher than the other gods and has a mix of physical and darkness attacks, along with several buffs and some pretty potent skills and abilities. So she is going to be a very tough fight on her own, adding in the buffs and the defense from the sinners, and this is going to be a very solid boss fight. Lastly, we have the Prophet of the False Gods, who has all of the skills of the other gods, minus their blessings. He has several different actions, but he also does significantly less damage. So he's going to hit you hard and fast and a lot of times, but if you keep your defense up, you shouldn't have too much trouble. You can also, you know, bring speedy, you buff your agi speed, and that'll really help deal with this guy. Let's see. So, Dark Goddess comes with a couple new items. Let's look at some of the new items that have been added. Okay. So, Treasure Relic. This is a new one. It summons... At the moment, it summons an enemy. But it also has a chance to give treasure, or will. Ah, I see. It's just been, it hasn't been edited yet. I forgot that step. Chest inside. So this is going to, let's see, do I have a loop set up for this yet? I don't think I do. Okay, so this is going to drop random treasures along with an enemy of some kind. The Holy Relic has been changed, so it does not give experience. Because one issue I found was that the side characters, they weren't, you know, catching up to the party fast enough, so using too many of these too early on meant that they were always too far behind the party to be really effective in world fights. So now it just triggers the growth effect, gives you an agility and a luck boost, and it does not give experience anymore. Dusts are a little bit more common, especially the topaz and the amethyst. So those should be more easy to get and use. And of course, you always have the old standby of the crystal flowers at the back of the house. Not much has changed with fishing. Strange devices. I have added a step counter. So you'll be able to get that at some point and just kind of check your steps. That'll be especially useful when trying to unlock that journey area. And then for those that haven't encountered it, let's go check that out. So we go to random maps. And one of the random maps you can encounter is called... Where is it? Where'd it go? I know I have it in here. Ah, okay, there we go. So this is the journey entrance, and when you come over to here, this talks. It gives you kind of a hint, and you have to go 1,000 miles of steps to unlock it. And once you do, you get some Easter eggs, you get a little story, you get some loot. It's sort of a nice final touch after you've gone through the whole game. And if you play through the game, you should definitely hit that step requirement to unlock the door. And then down here is another big thing that I've added, okay? So this has a couple items that go with it. What did I call these ones? I think they're experience crystals. We'll make sure forest crystal. Let's see. All right, so we'll come back to those ones. Here we go, experience crystals. So by talking to this statue here, you can take experience from party members and store it in the crystals, and then give that experience to other party members. This way, once you unlock Speedy, Dragon, or Margaret, instead of being permanently below the party, you can use this and take memories, take experience from your current party members and give it to the new characters. This also means that if you don't want to use Dragon, Speedy, or Candace, you can immediately just take the experience from them and give it to the other party members that you're actually using. This also means that if for some reason a party member falls behind, they don't get stuck behind. So, you know, if Calvin is level 20, but the rest of the party, due to one reason or another, unfortunate circumstances, swapping characters around, they're all down at 15, you can take experience from Calvin, and now the whole party's level 15. That way you're not going to run into enemies that you can't really fight. New recipe book. Added new fruit items, okay, because I noticed that it's very easy to end up with hundreds and hundreds of the small fruit, and it gets really annoying to sit there clicking dozens of times to heal up your party. So now you can condense the fruit into these fruit juices. This one takes 10, this one's 25, and this one takes 100. They each heal equivalent to the same number of small fruit, along with a little bonus. So you get more benefit out of using the juices, and you don't have to sit there and click, use fruit 100 times. They're small benefits, but it's still better than just the fruit on its own. Next, we've got the scrolls. These are pretty rare drops at the moment. These will be dropped by the gods and a few other enemies. And these just make sure you'll always deal a set amount of elemental damage. So these are really great for assessing enemies' weaknesses and resistances. It's good if you just, there's an enemy with just a sliver of health left you need to top out. It'll also be good for experimenting with modifiers. So, if you full fire armor set, see how much more bonus fire damage you can deal with that. A little Easter egg cameo that I've added into is Uncle John from the Reddit Stories channel. He has now come to town. So you can go into town and you can talk to him. And he's just kind of hanging out here. For a long time, he just said, the shop's not open yet, come back later. Now you can actually shop from him. And all of his soaps do different nice little things. So lemongrass cures sleep. Eucalyptus adds the rested state, which that's actually pretty nice. Pipe smoke soap removes slow effects. The wax melt gives quickness to the whole party, which is also really nice. Soap sampler adds rested and rally while curing a bunch of status effects. These are really powerful healing items that are pretty easy to get. They just cost a bit of money. And then the Enlightenment Balm that gives you that focus, and you get TP. So that's really great in the middle of a fight or right at the beginning when you just want to hit hard. Island. So on the island with the predators, the stalkers, the hunters, there's a bunch of new items. So playing around in the game, I felt like it was, depending on how you build your party, it can be really difficult to apply, like bleeding, for example. It's really hard to apply. In response to that, I added these new items. So I'll start from the top first. So these three these two are going to be used to craft the end game elemental gear. So the very high end fire armor and fire weapon, or elemental armor, elemental weapons. Then their meat is really, really useful. It gives a small amount of healing. It heals the whole party. And it removes knockout. It's just a meal. It's a meal, but you can get it from the fights pretty easy. So, on your way to Olympus, as you're fighting the enemies, you're also stocking up on some of these healing items. Next, we have the island fruit, mushroom, and lettuce. The fruit gives a small amount of healing. The mushroom, small amount of magic back. And the lettuce gives you some TP. All three of these you can see are instant. They're pretty plentiful on the island, so this is a really great way to stock up before that final area and those really intense boss fights. Along with those on the island, there's 3 types of crystal. You've got emeralds, rubies, and amethysts. Emeralds apply poison. Single emeralds apply to a single enemy. Clusters apply to all. Ruby is the same, but with burning, and then amethyst afflicts bleeding. So, with using these 3 elemental items, and these aren't instant items, so these do take your action, you can consistently apply status effects to enemies in order to try and work your way up to that doomed status. Next, we've got the trinket box. So this is pretty much the only way to get trinkets. Trinket drops are level dependent, so as you level up, you'll start getting better trinkets. And the big thing with trinkets is they kind of help the party scale a little bit more. They give you that little bit of an edge that you might need against some of the tougher enemies. And I'll show you those more in depth in a second. Then below trinkets, we've got another new item is treasure. And this is just a generic rare drop. It sells for a good amount. Nothing too special. But it can be really nice because, there's some times where you're going to need more gold. Next, we've got some of the Olympus items. Not all of them have been implemented yet, but these 4 so far. We've got the bottomless potion, which just gives stat boost to all of your stats, along with restoring all of your magic. The love potion, which applies that Kiss of Olympus state. The double-headed coin, which gives your character a 100% crit boost. And the double tails coin, which prevents an enemy from critting and makes them a little more susceptible. States, let's go take a look at that Kiss of Olympus real quick. I think there's only one state in here with Kiss in the name. There it is. Kiss of Olympus. So it gives you some regen, boosts your evasion, and boosts your defense. So it's a pretty solid buff ability. Okay, that's pretty much it for the new items. There's a couple other small ones around, but nothing really too significant. Most of this stuff has been in the game for a very long time. Some recipes have been tweaked. Oh, there's Grail Water. That's another new one. So that's kind of similar to the old Holy Relic. Kind of splits it into two. So this one gives you experience along with a small boost to health and magic. On to Trinkets. So all the way down here at the bottom, we have the new Trinkets. So as you can see, these do a large variety of things. Starting with the basic trinket, we've got evasion, hit rate, crit evasion, pharmacology, which that boosts your item use. So this means just having a trinket, all of your items 5% stronger. Boost TP charge rate, 1% boost to your health, 1% chance for an extra action, 1% boost to all your stats, and a random variance of 4. So these are pretty minor. There's a lot of them. They add up to, it'll be better to have it than to not. Then the Elven Bauble, it's got all of the same statuses, but as you can see, the effects, many of them double. So we got 2%, 10%. You still only have that 1% action bonus. As we go up, we get 3% and 15%. And as you can see, instead of getting a 2% action chance, you have two 1% action chances. So you still have 2% chance total for an extra action. But there's that, 1 in a 10,000 chance you'll get 2 extra actions from it. And they all kind of move down along those lines. They get better, they get more action chances. The Holy Trinket is sort of the top tier. That's when you have 5 extra action chances, 10% to all your stats. You have a small chance to apply burning, poison, and bleeding. 65% bonus to your item use. Pretty solid buff all around. In the same line, you also have the lightning, ice, and light trinkets. So lightning gives you resistant to electric, earth, and fire. Ice gives you resistance to ice, water, air. So depending on kind of where you're at and what you're fighting, you can swap between these. And then light gives you resistance to physical, darkness, and light. So between the 4 of these, you've got a pretty solid spread on what you want to equip and what you want to use. These will be really useful for when you're dealing with those god enemies. And you can, you'll kind of know what element they're going to be using, so you can swap to the applicable trinket, and that'll give you a huge edge over them. Or if you're running around in a lower level area, and you just want to get through without fighting too much stuff, or you're running around in the world zones and you're kind of familiar with them, so you know what element they're going to use. Those are just really useful to have. Weapons. I don't think there's been any new weapons. Some of these, though, you definitely haven't seen yet. So we've got... Towards the end, you can start getting these B, V, and Z variants of the elemental weapons. The big difference with these is they all allow for dual wielding. So the B, if I remember right, are on tier with the standard ones. V and X, or a V and S go together, and then Z and X go together. So that, if you want to go all in on damage, cut back on the defense, these will allow you to dual wield all of those weapons. Or if you want to combo and, say you want a fire sword and an ice sword, or, 2 water staves, things like that. Really, really good to have. Here we've got some hero weapons. These haven't been implemented yet, but the idea is that sort of midpoint in the game, you'll be able to start building these stronger weapons. Those really haven't been implemented at all yet. I'm going to need to find spots to put them. But it'll be a neat little side adventure. These will definitely have quests going along with them. They'll have unique materials you'll need to collect to upgrade the sword, and little shrines that you need to locate, bring the materials to, and then that'll let you upgrade the weapons. So we've got celestial weapons. These are going to be what's going to drop in Olympus. These are sort of the best weapons that can be dropped naturally. And then alongside those, we've got glimmering weapons. So these are even more powerful than the celestial, but they're going to require certain items to be obtained to craft these. So it'll be some combination of celestial, probably the ghost variant of the equivalent weapon, elemental essence, things like that. So you'll take these to a special shrine and interact with it, likely the Crystal Forge, and it'll let you craft these really powerful endgame weapons that you can then take into those final areas. Skills. There's been a decent amount of new skills. So all characters have several new skills that they can unlock. These ones are for the leveling. These are for the island. Here we go. So by finding those trainers, and so I'll show you the one in the forest. So by finding this guy, who's good at getting lost, you'll be able to interact with him, and he will teach the party different skills. Speedy can learn explosives, for better or worse. Nothing like a child with grenades. Here we have, these are Margaret. She can learn these. Lewis can get different prayers. What is it? Calvin is able to learn cleaves. The dragon gets new breath attacks. And Candace will get things like the shot and the bolts. So the bolts are pretty weak, cheap skills. Shots are in the similar cooldown, or similar category. But they'll hit all of the enemies and apply some status effects. Then, in addition to those, we've also got these new party skills that you're able to get. So Unholy Power, a lot of the enemies use that. That boosts their level. Minor Rest, the party's able to get that pretty early on. Speedy has that. Brawl is something that the party can get. I believe Margaret starts with this skill, which is it's really useful, especially early game. This lets you apply a lot of status effects and really turn the tides of a fight. Then we've got Inferno, which just ignites everything. Blizzard, Thunderstorm, Tidal Wave, Sandstorm. So these are all just party skills that are elemental themed. So later in the game, once you start unlocking these, you'll be able to build up that party limit and start taking down enemies a lot faster. Finisher, classic one, has a weird formula. But if any enemy whose level is below Calvin's instantly dies. And then it does a little bit of extra damage on top just to make sure it finishes them off. Generate card, so you can trade that party limit in exchange for some magic cards. It's really useful if you're running around in the forest or the desert trying to complete puzzles. And enemies are already going down pretty easy, so you just want to get a little bit of loot. On the topic of loot, we've also got Scavenge 1 through 4. And again, you can convert that party limit into loot. And as you can see, each one costs a different amount. Each one gives better loot and more loot. So, kind of trade-offs there. Limit charge. This is an enemy thing, so enemies will use this skill. Prismatic shot. This is going to be Candace's. She actually has several kind of neat ones. So she can use the prismatic shot to attack all enemies. It has a variety of effects. Team reload. She reduces the cooldown of a lot of her skills. Damage boost buffs the whole party. Defense boost buffs the whole party. These will probably be, if I remember right, these are Lewis and Speedy. I think all three of these are. And you get up to the combat boost there that has a pretty hefty increase for the whole party for 10 turns, which is usually going to be the whole fight. And then we've got Vampirism, where you can inflict the party with some Vampirism. And then we've also got some new Divine skills. We've got, so the Divine Darts. These are similar to the Magic Darts. They cost a little bit more, but they do a little bit more damage, and they do that light damage, which is always going to deal extra damage. No changes to classes. No changes to the actors. I know I've touched on them briefly, but so here's the moats again. These you'll unlock towards the end of the game. You'll be able to start getting them around Act 4, maybe 5. Once you get Margaret, you'll be able to start getting these. Each one has different abilities. They'll have different ways to unlock them. And you'll be able to have one in the party at a time. On your second playthrough, you'll be able to have two in the party at the same time. So against the tougher enemies, because it's your second playthrough, you'll get a little extra boost. And this can be things like weakening skill, an ice effect. You can get... this one gives buffs of all kind. I think there's one in here that just takes a lot of damage. Alright. I think I've got a few more of these planned, but they have a wide range of effects. They're pretty useful. You'll have to find them in the different areas, and then once you recruit them, you'll be able to head back to town and kind of swap them out and around. So that's what this area is here. Once you start getting moats, these will turn into sort of a corral, and the different moats will all wander around in there, and you can go in and swap them out as you please. What else am I missing? Let's take a look at, so island for the most part, grass and beach. We've got some caves with a couple different paths you can go through. Lots of grasslands. A couple different variants of the grasslands. They've got lots of enemies, loot, little treasures. Then, yeah, let's see. It is caves. Okay. So, in the end, once you've gone through all of the caves and everything, you'll get to this area, and this will be how you get up to Olympus finally. Olympus starts out with these big fields. There's 4, and they all connect to each other. You can move between them pretty freely. And each one is a little bit different, and each of these gates allows you to go to different locations. So even if you if you go to Olympus and you decide you won't want to go there anymore, you can come to any one of these gates, and it'll give you a few different options of where to travel to. And once you've kind of been to all of them and you know which one goes where, you'll be able to pick the one that you want to, the gate that has the location you want. The animal pens, this is a part of Olympus, so you'll go from the fields to the courtyard. And then from the courtyard, you can either continue deeper into the area or you can head south. So heading south, you'll get to the animal pens, which has a couple boss fights. It's got, you can see it's got some of the cats that you can capture. It's got these gates that you can open. Opening the gates, though, lets out the moats. The more moats that are floating around, the harder it is to avoid those fights. If you keep going south, you end up on the farm. So this farm is kind of neat. So none of these moats show up initially, but as you search the area and stick around, more and more of them will start showing up. Actually, there's Calvin right there. This is where I playtested most recently. Then over here, you'll have some unique flowers. So these will be the crystal flower, treasure plant, things like that. If you come around and go up, you've got 2 options of where to go. This path takes you just back to the animal pens. This path takes you to a hidden forest area. You'll start out here, and you'll be able to go to any of these other alternate paths. And those will take you to these different little side forests. So here we've got a fate fragment. We got some fishing. This is sort of a little path through the woods. You got some enemies and some plants to check out. This is the one I'm working on right now. It's just a big field, more or less. I'm going to put some treasure over here. I'm going to put some enemies around, but there's going to be just kind of a place to travel and explore. This is going to be another forest area when I'm done. As you can see, it is currently not a forest area. But this is kind of the template I'm going to want to work with. Here's another one that you can get to. So you'll come out over here and you'll be able to go out through that way. And then lastly, we've got Area 5, which this isn't quite finished yet, but it kind of gives what I'm looking for. You've got a little path to go around, and this will take you between a couple different forest areas as well. Other than that, we've got the courtyard and a second courtyard. And so it's, the outside of the Olympus area, it's a place that used to have things for the most part. A lot of it's now overgrown. It's in a little bit of disrepair. There's not really any people around. After the courtyard, so this bridge here, that's going to take you into the temple proper. I don't have those maps done yet. those will probably show up in V11. Those will definitely come post Steam release. Because I don't expect anyone to get this far very fast. And if someone does, then that is really, really impressive. Uh, but it is a pretty long, pretty extensive game. There's a lot going on. I have a lot more stuff planned, but I want to get that release out, start getting better feedback, start getting some more eyes on it. So the hope is once I have that, I can just I can work on adding a lot more of the peripheral stuff, and having lots of people find bugs will be a lot easier than trying to hunt them down myself. So it'll release in early access, of course, but it'll be mostly finished by that point. Um, and I hope within a year of Steam release to have it fully polished and ready to go. I've got three more games planned. So I've got a little prequel fighter game planned. I've got a sequel that's going to be another big project that I'm not quite ready to tackle. And then I'm also going to take a pause on this series entirely and work on a Legends of Terem game. It's going to be a roguelite, sort of a fighting game. It'll be more along the lines of some of the indie games that I've play tested. Maybe something along the lines of The Pit. But I really liked the setup for that Branded for Sacrifice. Had a really nice setup and balancing. So I'm gonna work with my co-developers and kind of figure out what we want to do for that. Currently, the general idea is that you'll start with probably the warrior, and as you play through, you'll get some kind of currency that at the end of a run you can then spend to unlock other permanent upgrades. And the plan right now is each character will be a cameo from one of our previous characters that we've played. So like Speedy will show up. I think she's going to show up in pretty much anything we do these days. She's a lot of fun. She'll lean more into the tech side of things, but she'll still have some healing. One of the warrior character is probably going to be Z-Trex, which was one of my characters. He was a 4-armed fighter, so he'll get like an extra action each round. Probably going to add in Ari, which was another character that we had. She used a mix of monk skills and artificery, so she had that mix of ranged and melee. Really fun character. And we're going to work out some perks, so you'll be able to go through different areas. There'll be different enemies in different areas, different map setups in each area. Some zones will give perks, some will give better equipment, some will give more loot, some you'll be able to spend your loot for short-term benefits, potions, healing items, things like that. And, as you progress the game, you'll unlock more things, you'll unlock more loot that you can find. Probably will start with some perks, things like that, as you work your way through. Exact details are still very, very much not set. There's a lot of discussion and planning to go into that first. I'm not sure where it's going to be set either. My current intention is going to be Wraith's End, which is a kind of a more rural town in the far south. It's a sort of Arctic area. And it's a place with a lot of magic and stuff going on. And so the idea is you'll probably be working your way through different ruins kind of thing. So that's kind of what's coming down the pipeline. That's what we've got going on right now. Everything's subject to change as things continue. If you like what you see here and you like where I'm going with the game, please give me a comment down below letting me know I am on the right track. If you hate my ideas and you don't like what's happening, Also, comment down below and let me know what I can do right, or join the Discord and tell me directly. I really want to do well with this. I want this to be a solid game. I'm really enjoying playing and making it. So I hope that you guys do as well. This bridge. Why is this bridge like this? Oh, interesting. I don't like that. Okay, I can see why that was like that. Oh, wait, but why was that like that? Weird. There. That was odd all around. Yeah, so nothing's perfect. But yeah, I'm going to keep the general themes going. Lots of loot, lots of stuff to do. In this newest build, you'll see a lot of these flowers and things have actually been replaced. They now are collectible items. So, you know, if you go to back to the forest, you'll see every single plant is actually a collectible item. They give, you know, some herbs, some dandelions. It's not a lot, but collecting all of these will definitely add up. And you can also ignore them if you don't want to bother collecting them. So I'm going to try to add in a lot more of that kind of stuff throughout the game. So you have a kind of general constant income of these different herbs without having to grind those low-level forest fights. Because that's one thing I'm trying to avoid, is I want to minimize grinding. I want to make it a game where you can kind of play through it and everything flows well. So far, so good. With the addition of trinkets, I think that really does give the party that bit of edge that they need to kind of keep moving between zones without having to stop and clear out a bunch of stuff and get up a few more levels. And that will be it for today. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. It's going to be another indie game playtest. I believe Voices of the Void is in line next. So stick around, check that out, and I'll see you next Friday.
Watch this.
What?
Ooh, what is this? Alert potion? Oh, this is...
God damn it!
I am very hard to control, alright, I'm sorry!
Guys, I got clipped out of the map.
Again?
God damn it, Mayor. Stop clipping out of the map.
And I don't mean like the usual way. Like, I literally phased through the floor because I drank a health potion.
Guys, check this out. Did you hear that?
Oh, Glitterow!
Oh, I've angered a guard.
Oh, Glitterow! Prodify!
Stop!
Bro does not understand what he just started.
This is worse than being trapped in the map.
I hear Oblitero once. Don't see what's shooting me. Detonate the room. Oh, hey.
What happened to him? What happened to E? Guys, what did you do to him?
Is that a spider?
How
I take
big
the
did
spider?
you make him?
Oh no! Oh no! Ah! What is this?
Alright, let's see
Have
if
a
this
spider.
works.
Prodify!
That didn't work. Oh god, I lit myself on fire. Alright, boys. Time for the hard reboot.
This is your face! I thought that was
What?
your leg! I thought you were wearing like lederhosen or something.
Oh god, I see someone's leg in the floor!
I can't move.
Hey guys, the problem is I wonder if he can die now.
He's
I
got
have
too much
like I have thousands of health.
Well, with thousands of health, thousands of armor, but who knows if your hitbox is even visible anymore?
there two
you know
of
what?
Guys, I've reached escape velocity.
Hey, E,
Yes.
I think you might have to just reset the world.
Oh, everything's on fire. I'm trapped inside this building. All right. I think everyone watching has gotten a good grasp of this game at this point. I'm going to stop the recording here. This is glorious. I will see you all in the next video.
Bye.